Okay, so I'm going to provide a quick overview of the research that we have going on at EPRI, the Pollinator research. This is kind of a thumbnail, and for folks that that are in the Power and Pollinator initiative, some of this this is like you'll see this is a real high level, just to get everybody kind of on the same page and hooked up with some resources that we have. So there's a few publications out that you can go and look at. There's an article that came out in EPRI's State of Technology report last year on pollinators. We had a feature on Dairyland called Power to the Pollinators in the EPRI Journal. One of the things that we've talked about here and that we've also seen is that there's already a lot going on with projects, and those stories aren't necessarily getting out there or being told. And so one of the things that we're focused on over the next year or couple years is to try to help to get some of these stories related to electric power companies out there a little bit more and share this information through a collaborative forum that EPRI can sort of help facilitate. We have a public website coming that'll launch in May. And there's the URL, it's epri.com/pollinators, and I'm happy to send a note out when that actually goes live. We're coordinating it a little bit with coming ahead of National Pollinator Week, which EPRI is also coordinating for the electric power industry participation in National Pollinator Week in collaboration with Pollinator Partnership. It's a strong sort of public-facing, public communication opportunity that we have going, and none of our power companies that we're working with right now in our Power and Pollinator initiative have done that yet. So it's kind of a launch year for both the EPRI work in that space as well as for all the companies that are working with us. So just an overview. If some of you were at our workshop a year ago in April of 2017. At that time, we were brainstorming what should go into this initiative. So we were collecting feedback. What are key issues? What are technical projects that we can tackle and get done? EPRI is a nonprofit research organization. We do a lot of work, publish peer-reviewed papers, and can really get into the details on some pretty deep technical work. This initiative here is a mix of that deeper technical work as well as more kind of public communication opportunities. So it's a little bit of a mix, as well as best practice sharing, that sort of thing. And we launched late last year, and these are the companies, the founding companies of Power and Pollinators. This is where we are right now. It changes frequently. It's continuing to grow, but we're real happy with our launch year and the participation of the companies. So what are we doing together? One of the efforts is to advance this concept of metrics. How do you know what is success? How are you getting it done? How are you measuring this? Yesterday at our working meeting, we had a full hour talking about metrics. We're going to compile a database of pollinator metrics. That's a big database, right? Because there's so many possible pollinator metrics out there. We're working with Xerces to compile this database. We'll map each metric by purpose. So is it a communication metric? Are you trying to measure on-the-ground benefit to the pollinators? Is it for setting goals, like the benchmarking question? Where's Kevin? He keeps asking me about this benchmarking thing. He's not here. Oh, there you are. So what's the purpose of your metric? Really important to keep in mind. And then also we will track the level of effort to collect the metric. So can you do it from a desktop survey, like GIS layers or something like that? Do you need to get into the field and do, grab samples, data collection, vegetation count, that sort of thing? And then after we get the first database built, we'll test it for usability, and we'll be pilot testing it with power companies. We already have, and I think that's, oh yeah, it's this slide. So EPRI already hosts something called the Sustainability Benchmarking Effort. We collect data from 45 companies every year confidentially on 75 metrics. Now it's 90 metrics on corporate sustainability. We benchmark their performance against each other. That's I can't point anywhere because there's like 10 screens. The one on the right that says 448 metrics to 75, that's a screenshot. It's blinded. So on this, you just see company 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The companies themselves know who they are. So they can benchmark how they're doing on whatever metric this is. This is greenhouse gas emissions per megawatt hour, probably. Yep. And so we already have sort of embedded with EPRI members the agreements, the confidentiality coverage, and this coded data collection tool. If we wanted to roll in pollinator metrics, we can do it. And we do the data call to the companies every year. They're used to getting it. They know how to go grab the data. But we would want to pilot test something related to pollinators. So there's a lot here going on related to metrics. Overall, we anticipate having this kind of big database. It's a compendium database out in the fall this year. I'm not saying that that's usable. I'm just saying that it pulls it all together. Then next year, we'll be working on figuring out what are the right metrics to use, companies can actually use for their different purposes. So this is a 2-year kind of thing. Metrics is tough work on this one. Okay, so another project is a GIS prioritization tool. This one is answering this question, where do I work? Let's get to kind of the analysis of within my territory, where I run and operate, where should I work? ATC already has one. Is ATC here? Oh, hi. So we had a presentation at our workshop last year. I think she's presented multiple times to this group as well. So that's an interesting example. ConEd has one that ComEd has been working on. We heard that. There's a number of different ways to do this. EPRI's going at it from kind of a hard science angle first. So what is the proxy that you can use, a generalizable proxy for pollinator habitat that you can pull into a GIS layer? So you're talking about desktop ability. So you're kind of, the proxy is a little bit of a smoothing over of some of the science potentially, where you're getting to some easy data layers that you can grab. So we're going to do a peer lit review for proxy, have experts kind of sign on, publish a paper, that kind of basic science, like establishing credibility step. Then we'll run custom scenarios for power companies where you can bring in, hey, I really care about Rusty Patch, or I really care about Monarch, or you can bring in company-specific information, your rights of ways, and that sort of thing in kind of a safe place. Like we could run scenarios with this. So you can hone in on where are your best opportunities on your properties, or where's the best opportunities for you to collaborate with your neighbors given proximity to ag lands and things like that. We're collaborating with EPA on this. We're pulling what they have the ability to do this desktop analysis with no GIS skills at all, not even the Esri software, from your laptop using EnviroAtlas. You can click on and off layers. They don't have it live yet, but that's what we're working with them on, is to make some pollinator layers live. So our analysis of these pollinator proxies, once we get that super defensible scientifically, EnviroAtlas is going to roll that into a publicly usable tool, so everybody gets it and can run layers and analysis on it. And then EPRI will be able to be there to apply it to specific company needs. T&D lines, surplus properties tend to be sort of sensitive, confidential. Where's all your properties? Give me the map. I want the KMZ file. That's kind of like, whoa, what are you going to do with it? So that's where EPRI can sort of help out, right? Because we can do those type of projects with folks. So we're doing this, and we'll have, we should have proxies pretty well worked out by the end of this year, and have the buy-in from who are academic and practitioner experts on that by the end of this year. And then next year, or late this year, start pilot testing the approach with a few EPRI members that will volunteer to step up to use it. And then we're developing a story database. This will be late this year. This is like a not technical project. This is one that related to public communication. EPRI will develop a public-facing database where companies can start to catalog their stories around pollinators. Hopefully we get to the point of having some metrics. So this concept of let's take credit for what we're already doing. That's not happening now for a couple, well, many different reasons. And what EPRI is hoping to do is to address it by showing what we're getting done as a collaborative. So each company can also tell their own story here, but then we'll roll it up to say, as a group of companies, here's what we're getting done for pollinators. Of course, that requires us to sort of figure out how to measure that. Maybe something like this, you'd start with acres, you know, or you'd have to figure out if you can get quality of acres or quality adjusted acres. I'm not sure yet, but this is something that we're going to be working on. Okay, then going deeper now into on-the-ground work. We've been actually working on pollinators for quite some time. We have publications back 10 years looking at pollinators, ecosystem services, how to do economic valuation of ecosystem services, including pollination. This is one project that John Goodrich Mahoney is leading. He's here in the back of the room, along with John Ackland, who's over there. Really nice Johns. John. I have 2 more Johns in my group. Can you imagine the team calls? John, did you do that? Huh? John. So anyway. Okay, so these are deep projects that we do. They look at responses in your right-of-ways to different IVM practices. These are typically 5-year studies. The first year you go get baseline, then you can start manipulating what's going on in the field with different test plots, different mowing regimes, different applications of herbicides, and so forth. And then you go out in year 3 and 4, and measure. You actually collect those insects and do the population assemblages of what's actually out there. So this is some of what we were talking about a little bit earlier on these 5-year projects. This is really intensive. It also gives you a huge amount of data to know what's really going on in your rights-of-ways and what's out there. So we have these projects going with NYPA, First Energy, initiation with Southern Company. Claire Ike is here. Where's Claire? Claire's in the back if you have questions. These companies that are working on these projects are really leaning in. Like, these are big projects. Takes 5 years to get them done. So you're seeing a lot of leadership here by these power companies in doing these vegetation response projects on rights-of-ways. Okay, then we're also doing Monarch Research. Monarch Research is just getting started with us this year. I actually have a 2-pager that's on the sharing table back there. So if you want to see the details of the Monarch Research, you can grab that. You guys know all this about monarchs. Big range. There's an assumption about the role and amount of responsibility for power companies. That's what we want to check and see what is it that companies are already doing for Monarch. What could they be doing? And there's actually my questions. What is their role in monarch conservation? What are regionally specific BMPs that make sense? So we're trying to peel this apart very, again, scientifically, analytically. This will be a heavily cited research paper on monarchs. And then what barriers and solutions are there for implementing these conservation actions with power companies? So getting our hands around the issue a bit. And the report will include case studies of what power companies are already doing to support monarchs. And I will say, you know, that's a tough one. There's hesitancy there to tell the story because we heard about concern for future liability. You're going to get slapped. You're not going to be considered the Good Samaritan because you supported Monarch. If it gets listed, now are you going to have something else in your hand, which of course leads into all kinds of conversations around the CCAA and safe harbors and all that stuff. So we're working with Xerces on this project on Monarch. This year, We've already had calls with Fish and Wildlife and engaging with Monarch experts. If I haven't talked to you, it's not because I don't want or intend to. We just haven't done it yet. So if you're a Monarch expert or anything, let's hook up and make sure we're connecting with the right people on this. We'll have a report that will describe these conservation actions. What are the actions? The BMPs based on your region, and how do they apply to power companies? There'll be consideration both for rights-of-way, so IVM, as well as surplus property. Surplus meaning, you also got hydro facilities, you've got closed ash pond opportunities, substations. There's a lot, and then there's actually more than thousands. I don't know if I could say a million, probably 1 million acres at least in this corporate surplus property space. So it's non-right-of-way. That's everything else out there. The power industry is a very old industry. They own a lot of property. So we'll have a draft report out for expert review in November. However, we're hooking up with Fish and Wildlife and others along the way to make sure we're doing this in a way that makes sense. We're not missing anything as we go. And Michael's here. Hey, Michael. Michael Gale. You got Monarch issues. Talk to Michael. Okay. And then this is just a quick slide. This isn't even this is not all our publications, but this is just some of the recent ones. Looking at power line corridor vegetation related to insect pollinator diversity. We have one on the glyphosate and honeybee intersection, the direct effects between glyphosate and honeybees. And then some early results of some of the field testing and the species collection we've done on our field studies in New York and Ohio, looking at all the pollinator assemblages out there. And that is like a thumbnail of what we've got going. Questions? John, GM, did I miss anything? Good? John Ackland? Are we good? And then Christian Newman's that big guy standing in the back with the dark hair right there. He leads our protected species program at EPRI. He started last September. The Monarch Research falls under his research program. Just so if folks are interested in how that goes. Okay, I think that's all I've got. Thank you.